A powerful seal, a struggling janitor. An unlikely partnership that uncovers a truth no one saw coming. What they found would change everything, but not in the way they expected. This is a story about courage, hidden strength, and the bonds that form in the most unexpected places. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us that life's biggest lessons often come from the most unexpected people. The night shift, the fluorescent lights of Hartwell Enterprises buzzed softly in the empty office, casting long shadows across the polished floors. It was well past midnight, and the only sound was a rhythmic squeak of a mop sliding across tile. Maria Lopez moved methodically, her tired but steady hands guiding the worn mop head in slow, practiced arcs. At 38, she had spent the last 5 years cleaning these offices, her nights defined by solitude and the quiet hum of the building's HVAC system. She adjusted the strap of her headscarf, tucking a loose strand of dark hair behind her ear. The work was thankless, but it paid the bills, barely. With 2 kids at home and rent due next week, she couldn't afford to slow down, not even for a second. Across the floor, in the executive wing, Ethan Hartwell sat hunched over his desk, his brow furrowed. The glow of his laptop screen reflected in his sharp blue eyes, highlighting the exhaustion etched into his face. At 42, he had built Hartwell Enterprises from the ground up, turning it into one of Chicago's most respected financial firms. But tonight, the numbers weren't adding up. A discrepancy, small but undeniable. He rubbed his temples, scrolling back to the quarterly reports. Something was off in the offshore accounts. Tiny withdrawals, barely noticeable unless you were looking for them. But he was looking, and now he couldn't unsee it. A soft clatter from the break room snapped him out of his thoughts. He wasn't alone. Ethan pushed back from his desk and followed the sound, his polished dress shoes clicking against the marble floor. When he reached the break room doorway, he saw her, the night janitor, her back turned as she wiped down the countertops. Maria froze when she heard him enter. She turned slowly, her dark eyes widening just slightly before she schooled her expression into careful neutrality. "Mr. Hartwell," she said, her voice steady but guarded. "I didn't realize anyone was still here." Ethan exhaled, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Yeah, long night." Maria nodded, gripping the edge of her cleaning cart. She had seen him here late before, but never this late, and never looking like this, like a man carrying the weight of something heavy. Ethan studied her for a moment. He had passed in the halls 100 times, barely registering her presence. But now, in the dim glow of the break room lights, he noticed the way her shoulders tensed, the way her gaze flicked toward the hallway, toward the finance department. Not just fatigue, unease. "You okay?" he asked. Maria hesitated. The question was unexpected. No one ever asked her that here. "I'm fine," she said automatically. Ethan didn't buy it. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You sure? Because you look like you've seen something." Maria's grip on the cart tightened. She had, in fact, seen something. Something she had tried to convince herself wasn't her business. But now, with the CEO standing in front of her, his sharp eyes searching hers, she wondered if silence was the right choice. Ethan waited. He had spent years reading people, clients, investors, competitors, and right now, this woman was holding back. "Maria, right?" he asked, glancing at her name tag. She nodded. He exhaled, leaning against the counter. "Look, I know we don't exactly talk, but if there's something going on in this building that I should know about, I need you to tell me." Maria swallowed. The air between them felt charged, like the moment before a storm. She had a choice. Walk away, keep her head down, protect her job, or speak up and risk everything. Her voice was barely above a whisper when she finally answered. "Maybe." Ethan's pulse quickened. Maybe wasn't a no. "What did you see?" Maria glanced toward the hallway again, as if expecting someone to appear. Then she met his gaze, her own resolve hardening. "Not here," she murmured. "Somewhere quieter." Ethan nodded slowly. He didn't know what she was about to tell him, but he had a feeling it would change everything. And he was right. The broken system, The elevator door slid shut with a quiet ding, sealing Maria and Ethan inside. The silence between them was thick, charged with unspoken questions. Maria kept her eyes fixed on the descending floor numbers, her fingers twisting the edge of her work apron. Ethan studied her profile, noting the tightness in her jaw. Whatever she had seen, it had shaken her. The elevator stopped at the basement level, an area Ethan rarely visited. The fluorescent lights flickered as they stepped out into a long, narrow hallway lined with storage rooms and old filing cabinets. Maria led him to a small break room, one reserved for maintenance staff. The space was sparse: a chip table, a microwave with a broken handle, and a coffee pot that had long since burned its last brew. Maria locked the door behind them. Ethan raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. She turned to face him, her dark eyes serious. "Before I say anything, I need to know, can you protect me if this goes bad?" The question caught him off guard. "What do you mean?" Maria exhaled sharply. "I have 2 kids. This job is all we have. If I lose it—" "You won't," Ethan said firmly. "Whatever this is, I'll make sure you're safe." She searched his face, as if weighing his sincerity. Then, with a slow nod, she pulled a crumpled sticky note from her pocket and smoothed it onto the table. Ethan leaned in. Scribbled in hurried handwriting were a series of numbers, figures that didn't match any of Hartwell's official records. "Where did you get this?" Maria crossed her arms. 3 weeks ago, I was cleaning the finance department after hours. Mr. Reeves was still in his office. I didn't think much of it. He works late sometimes. But then I heard the shredder. Ethan's stomach tightened. Daniel Reeves, the CFO, was one of his most trusted executives. Maria continued. "When he left, I went in to empty the trash. That's when I found this." She tapped the sticky note. It was stuck to a file he must have missed. The numbers didn't make sense, so I kept it, just in case. Ethan picked up the note, his mind racing. The figures were account codes, offshore transfers. If he had to guess, small amounts, but frequent, enough to add up over time. "Did you see anything else?" Maria hesitated. "A few nights later, I saw him coming out of the server room. He had a flash drive, and last week," she bit her lip, "last week, I found a safe behind a painting in his office." Ethan's blood ran cold. "A safe?" Maria nodded. "I didn't see inside, but he was the only one who went near it." Ethan exhaled slowly, rubbing his temples. If Daniel was embezzling, it explained the discrepancies in the reports. But proving it wouldn't be easy. Daniel was careful, connected, and if he realized Maria knew, his thoughts were cut off by the distant sound of footsteps in the hallway. Maria's eyes widened. "Someone's here." Ethan held up a hand, listening. The steps grew closer, then paused outside the door. A key jiggled in the lock. Maria's breath hitched. Ethan acted on instinct. He grabbed her arm and pulled her into the supply closet just as the break room door creaked open. Through the slats in the closet door, they watched as Daniel Reeves stepped inside, his polished shoes clicking against the tile. He glanced around, frowning, then pulled out his phone. "Yeah, it's me," he muttered. No one's here. Must have been the cleaning crew." Ethan's grip on Maria's arm tightened. Daniel lowered his voice. "We need to move faster. Hartwell's getting suspicious." A pause. "I'll handle it. Just make sure the transfers go through tonight." He hung up and left, the door clicking shut behind him. For a long moment, neither Ethan nor Maria moved. The air in the closet was stifling, thick with the scent of bleach and dust. Finally, Maria whispered, "He's stealing from you." Ethan's jaw clenched. "And he's not working alone." Maria swallowed hard. "What are you going to do?" Ethan met her gaze. "We're going to prove it." The trap, the hum of the fluorescent lights in the empty parking garage made Maria's skin crawl. She tightened her grip on the keys in her pocket, the jagged edges biting into her palm. Beside her, Ethan stared at his phone, his jaw set in a hard line. "You're sure this is the only way?" Maria whispered, her voice barely audible over the distant drip of a leaking pipe. Ethan didn't look up. "If we want proof, we need to see what's in that safe. And we can't wait for another opportunity." Maria exhaled sharply. The plan was simple in theory. While Ethan kept Daniel distracted in a late-night meeting, she would slip into his office and search for evidence. But simple didn't mean safe. Her stomach twisted as she remembered the cold look in Daniel's eyes earlier. "What are you doing here?" he had asked, his voice too calm, too measured. She had lied, of course, said she was just cleaning. But the way he had watched her leave, she shook off the memory. "And if he catches me?" Ethan finally met her gaze. "He won't. Security will be looped in discreetly, and I'll make sure he's nowhere near that office." Maria wanted to believe him, but years of surviving on the fringes of power had taught her one thing. Plans fell apart. 11:47 p.m. Executive floor. The hallway was too quiet. Maria's sneakers made no sound as she moved toward Daniel's office, her cart of cleaning supplies rolling smoothly beside her. The security guard at the front desk, a man Ethan had personally vouched for, gave her a barely perceptible nod as she passed. So far, so good. She eased the office door open, wincing at the soft creak of hinges. The room was dark, the only light coming from the city skyline beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The painting Daniel kept his safe behind, a bland corporate landscape, hung slightly crooked, as if someone had recently moved it. Maria's pulse thundered in her ears as she approached. "Just act normal. You belong here." She reached for the painting and froze at the sound of footsteps outside the door. Her breath caught. Too early. Ethan was supposed to keep Daniel occupied for at least another 20 minutes. The doorknob turned. Maria lunged for a cart, grabbing a spray bottle just as the door swung open. Daniel stood in the doorway, his tailored suit immaculate, his expression unreadable. "Working late again, Maria?" She forced her fingers not to tremble as she wiped down his desk. "Just finishing up, sir." Daniel stepped inside, letting the door click shut behind him. "Funny, I don't remember requesting service tonight." The air in the room thickened. Maria kept her eyes on the rag in her hands. Standard deep clean rotation. Once a month. "Is that so?" Daniel circled her slowly, his polished shoes gleaming in the dim light. "You know, I've been noticing you around a lot lately. Outside my office. Near the server room." He paused. "Even in the basement with our dear CO." Maria's blood turned to ice. He knew. Daniel smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Tell me, Maria, what exactly do you and Ethan Hartwell talk about down there?" Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from security. Reeves never showed to the meeting. His stomach dropped. Back in the office, Daniel stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "You're not as invisible as you think." Maria's fingers inched toward the panic button in her pocket, the one Ethan had given her. Daniel's hand shot out, gripping her wrist. "I wouldn't." For the first time, Maria saw it, the flicker of fear beneath his polished facade. He was scared of what she knew. That realization gave her the last bit of courage she needed. She yanked her arm free and smashed the spray bottle against the edge of the desk, sending glass shattering to the floor. "Stay back." Daniel lunged, just as the office door burst open. Ethan stood in the doorway, his chest heaving, security guards at his back. "Daniel Reeves, you're under investigation for embezzlement." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Daniel laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You have no proof." Ethan stepped aside, revealing the head of IT holding a flash drive. "Thanks to Maria, we have everything." Maria's legs nearly gave out as relief flooded her. But the moment was short-lived. Daniel's expression darkened. "This isn't over." As security led him away, Ethan rushed to Maria's side. "Are you okay?" She nodded, still gripping the broken bottle. "But he's right about one thing," she whispered. "This isn't over." Somewhere in the building, an alarm began to blare. Truth and rebirth. The blaring alarm sent a jolt of adrenaline through Maria's body. The sharp, pulsing sound cut through the office like a knife, its red emergency lights painting the walls in erratic flashes. Ethan's head snapped toward the door. "That's a fire alarm, but there's no fire." Maria's stomach twisted. "He's covering his tracks." Without another word, they bolted from the office, joining the stream of late-night employees flooding the stairwell. The crowd pushed and jostled, but Ethan kept a firm grip on Maria's arm, ensuring they weren't separated. Where would he go? Maria shouted over the noise. Server room. Ethan yelled back. If he's trying to destroy evidence, that's where he'll be. They broke away from the crowd, ducking into a service elevator just before the doors closed. The descent was agonizingly slow. Maria's pulse hammered in her throat, her mind racing. Daniel was desperate, and desperate men were dangerous. The elevator door slid open to reveal a dimly lit hallway. The alarm was muffled here, but the red light still pulsed like a warning. At the end of the hall, the server room door stood slightly ajar. Ethan motioned for silence as they approached. Through the crack, they could see Daniel hunched over a terminal, typing frantically. A small duffel bag sat at his feet, stuffed with files and what looked like bundles of cash. Maria's breath caught. He was running. Ethan didn't hesitate. He shoved the door open, his voice booming. "It's over, Daniel." Daniel whirled around, his face a mask of panic. For a split second, Maria thought he might surrender, but then his hand flew to his waist, pulling a sleek black handgun from his jacket. Maria's blood turned to ice. "You should have stayed out of this, Ethan." Daniel spat, his grip tightening on the weapon. "Both of you." Ethan stepped in front of Maria, shielding her. "You won't shoot. There are witnesses everywhere. The building's evacuated." Daniel's laugh was brittle. "You think I care about witnesses now?" He raised a gun. A deafening crack split the air. Maria flinched, bracing for pain, but it never came. Instead, Daniel crumpled to the ground with a choked gasp, the gun clattering from his hand. Behind him stood the head of security, his own weapon drawn, face grim. "Call for backup the second you left my sight, Mr. Hartwell," the guard said, kicking Daniel's gun away. "Figured you'd need it." Ethan exhaled sharply, his shoulders sagging with relief. Maria, still trembling, stepped forward. "Is he?" "Alive," the guard confirmed, pressing 2 fingers to Daniel's neck. "But he won't be going anywhere." 3 weeks later. The press conference was a spectacle. Cameras flashed as Ethan stood at the podium, Maria beside him. The headlines had been relentless. CFO's betrayal rocks Hartwell Enterprises. Janitor turned hero exposes $1 million fraud. But today wasn't about scandal. It was about change. Ethan cleared his throat, addressing the crowd. Hartwell Enterprises owes its survival to Maria Lopez. Her courage exposed not just theft, but the systemic failures that allowed it to happen. He turned to her, his voice softening. "Which is why, effective immediately, Maria will join our executive ethics board, with full voting power." The room erupted in applause. Maria, dressed in a sharp blazer instead of her usual uniform, blinked back tears. Ethan continued, "And this is just the beginning. We're instituting fair wage adjustments for all custodial staff, expanding benefits, and creating a scholarship fund for their families." The applause grew louder. Reporters shouted questions, but Ethan ignored them, leaning toward Maria. "You ready for this?" She smiled, straightening her shoulders. Born ready. Epilogue, 1 year later. The annual shareholders meeting was packed. Maria, now Vice President of Workplace Integrity, stood at the front of the room, presenting the company's new transparency initiatives. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, Ethan pulled her aside. "Remember when you were afraid to even talk to me?" Maria laughed. "Yeah, well, turns out I had a lot to say." Ethan grinned, clapping her on the back. And thank God for that. Outside, the Chicago skyline glittered, the city alive with possibility. Somewhere in the crowd, a young janitor watched Maria with awe, dreaming of what they, too, might become. And the cycle began again.